What's up, guys? Thanks for watching the podcast. I truly appreciate it. I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe from you. That helps the YouTube channel grow. And I wanted to drop in and remind you one more thing. If you have any friends, family, or anyone you know looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, please have them call me. Get in touch with me via email at blake@blakebaker.net or on Instagram at blakebakerrealestate. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Under Contract podcast. All right, man, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Under Contract podcast. I forgot off the top of my head what number episode this is, but you will see in the thumbnail. I'm here with a new acquaintance that I just met recently. My man TrakkSounds here. Let's give him a round of applause. Oh, wait, wrong one. Here we go.
Thank you for having me.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Not too much. I'm good, man. Just making it through the week. You know, Houston weather's been being Houston all week. We can't decide what it wants to do one day, but I'm glad to be here. So
yeah. Yesterday I was over in Old Pasadena checking on a listing, and it like kind of started getting windy. I'm like, oh dang. Went down Beltway, came all the way home, and it rained here for about 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, and it was over. The sun was shining. Yeah. Turn on the TV, half of Deer Park's like in shambles. Yep. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that either. So hopefully everything was all right over there, but I did see that it was way worse in some areas than it was in some others. So.
No one got hurt. That's a miracle.
That is a miracle.
Yeah.
I saw some damage.
Yep. So, man, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, let everybody know your background, what you do, what you have done, where you're from.
My name is TrakkSounds. I am from Houston, Texas for the most part. I am a music producer mostly that most people know me as. Also, I'm a touring DJ for an artist out here named Maxo Cream. I do a few other things as well, too. I also build luxury glamping sites. I do a little bit of everything between real estate and music, so I kind of have my hand in both things, and I like having they have similarities and they also have differences. They kind of keep me on my toes, and I learn a lot in each one all the time. So
definitely keep you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love connecting with different people that have trying to build visions and whatever their goals and whatever their skill sets are too. So I like talking with people that have can build that inspiration into you from other sides of the world, for lack of a better word. So that's kind of just what I've been on lately, is just expanding my own taste and things that I really like to do, and a lot of them follow in the music and real estate path.
Yeah, I've been excited to do this, man. I'm glad we finally got it on the schedule. I got that closing done, so I'm pretty free reign now. But
I was glad too.
Marco's been telling me forever to have you on the podcast, and he actually threw us in a DM together, and that's how this all started. So thank you, Marco.
Shout out to Marco V.
Here we are. So I'm going to send him this for sure. And I want to talk to you about the real estate stuff. But first, the music stuff. So you're a producer. And for people who don't know what a producer does, just kind of give them the kindergarten version.
Basically, if you hear a song and you hear the lyrics, I do the opposite side of that, which is all the background music pretty much. And I helped record the lyrics onto that background music. So that's kind of a layman's terms of what exactly I do within my music studio out here.
Okay. So you're literally in studio with these artists, and you use Pro Tools?
I do. I also use Logic, which is like the MacBook version of Pro Tools, but I've been doing this 18 years now, so I've pretty much used everything under the sun. So,
dang. How old are you?
32.
Okay.
Yeah. I had my parents let me have a studio. Shout out to them, when I was like 13 or 14 in my bedroom for high school. So I've been professionally since I was 18, but I was doing it in high school too. So
dang. So how did you first get started? Like what drove you to like sit down and like make a beat for the first time?
I always just had my dad is a musician, my aunt is a musician, so I always had music in my family. And it was always one of those things, I'd hear songs and my brain, I was 12 or 13, and I wasn't really worried about the lyrics. I was always so fascinated by the background music, and I'm like, how do they even put that together? And like Timberland, who was like my favorite producer of all time, he was a real big inspiration early on for me, because I would hear his stuff and it was so intricate. I just couldn't wrap my head around how somebody would actually put this together. So me, being an inquisitive person like that, I started researching it and slowly figured it out. And that was right when YouTube was launching. So it was like
2005
Yeah,
or so.
it was perfect timing for me because I honestly, I tell people all the time, like I learned how to make beats off YouTube. Like my whole career started because of YouTube, without a doubt.
YouTube University.
Yep, I tell people that's my exact phrase. So people ask me, "Did you go to school for it?" and things like that. And I went to U of H for hospitality management actually, but before that, I went to a music school for like 2 or 3. I was like 19 or something. I went to a music school for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I knew so much more than everybody already kind of in there. Not not to sound like to my own horn of sorts, but I already was so far into it. And then I started working in studios, and just working under somebody that has that experience is so much more valuable 95% of the time than what you could, pay for in a school, for something. So learning from under mentors and people that actually do this and do this real life and something like that in a lot of fields is the most valuable thing you can do. And surrounding yourself with those type of people.
Sounds just like real estate.
Very similar. Very, very similar. Because if you're not the dumbest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people that are thinking about getting their real estate license, they'll come to me and say, "What school did you go to?" And I'm like, dude, look, it don't matter what school you go to, because the classes are going to be nothing like the test, and the test is going to be nothing like the job.
Yep.
And
100%.
the only way to do it is I luckily knew a guy who he mentored me, and he was like, if I had a question, I could call him. Mm-hmm. You have to have that, dude. If you don't have that, you're never going to get off the ground. Like the first contract I ever went to write, I didn't even know how to write a contract. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, can you help me write this contract? That's why I got my first deal.
Yep.
So that's super important.
Very,
for sure.
a lot of things in life are very case specific. And so there's a textbook for it. And I'm sure there's some basic knowledge in there that can help you get it. But like you were saying, there's so many nuances to everything in life that usually working with somebody that has that experience of it will guide you so much easier and save you from so many pitfalls or terrible mistakes that can really cost you, just because they probably made those mistakes themselves. Mm-hmm. And they can tell you, hey, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. And that's usually the most invaluable, advice.
And the law of 10,000 hours. I mean, I'm sure there was, before you really had mentors, everything, you were probably just sitting in your lab just all night long.
100%.
Just trying to figure, because I've had the opportunity to sit in a couple recording studios. One was, my uncle has a country band, so he went to record a CD we drove up to Dallas, and this was in 2008. So I'm sure the technology is way better now.
It's way different.
Bro, the studio was a window. It was like a full band. They had drummer, fiddle, steel guitar, all that. And they were all in separate little rooms. Yeah. The window was probably 40 feet long, and there was a board of knobs.
Yeah.
More knobs than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think the dude had 3 or 4 Mac Tower computers together running Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And I was watching him just work, and I was like, holy crap.
It's insane, just technology in general. But in the past 10 years, it's amazing how much technology has advanced in the recording thing, because even those big boards they're really, really outdated now at this point. If you still use a big board, there are pros and cons to it, and there's specific brands of it, and those boards are like $200,000 sometimes.
Oh my god!
But if you still use a board, you're either the greatest engineer of all time, and you just are that good that you can do that, or you're somebody that's just really, really behind in the times. There's no in the middle. Like most studios now, we use a computer with all software-based engineering effects that mimic the big boards now, and from space-wise to everything, it just makes everything so much easier. Those boards used to break all the time too, so could you imagine?
Well, it's all wire. Every little knob has wires.
And you have to get a specialist to come in and fix it on a $200,000. It's a nightmare. It's like $1,500 just to fix one knob sometimes.
Well, I can't. Now that makes sense, because the guy who owned the studio, it was on his property. It's on his little homestead, and he was an oil and gas guy. Dude, he had guap.
So that makes sense.
He was just like, I enjoy music, so I'm going to open a recording studio.
I'm sure it was a multi-million-dollar studio.
Oh, dude, it was something like I've never seen. Then the next one I saw, and I had my friend Sam on this podcast, but me and him recorded a track in a storage unit. Dude, over by Hobby Airport.
Nice.
And it was it was a storage unit, but they had built it out. There was a little sitting area, and then there was the egg crates on the wall. But this kid Dylan, man, I don't know what his DJ name. I just know him as Dylan, but he was all computer, which was completely different than what I had seen before. And he was just fast. Everything was fast. I was like, I couldn't even see what he was doing, but I just looked at that and I was like, dude, you can just tell when someone is doing something that looks like magic, they just put in hours and hours and hours.
Absolutely. You don't pay for, like, a lot of people will come to my studio, and a good bit of my work is out by hourly, and a lot of times I'll get done a lot quicker. And, you know, there's some things that I do that are flat rate and I still can do them very quickly. And there's some things that I do hourly that I still can do quickly. But people are always, you know, they're like, well, you mix this song so quickly, like, why do I have to pay a full price thing? And it's one
because I've been doing it for 20 years, bro.
Yeah, you're paying for my time that I've spent. That's why I can do it so fast.
Do it without me then.
Take it to somebody else, they're going to spend 5 hours and it's not going to be as good. And you're going to pay more, and then bring it back to me to have to pay me again.
Man, yeah.
So I've learned that a lot in life, that the hours and all that makes every experience for everybody so much more enjoyable and just beneficial overall for them.
So if you have somebody who wants to just pay to come record, you take them and get paid hourly?
Yep.
Cool.
I'm pretty, at this point now, I'm pretty, I'm a lot tighter on clients I take in, because I have a big word of mouth client base. And, you know, in studios, there's a lot of studios that have been robbed before, and, you know, things like that.
I bet.
So like there's people that will fake book online, like, hey, I'm coming from Chicago. I need to record for 2 or 3 hours tonight. Can, you know, I book? And some people are so desperate, they're like, okay, I'll take them. And then you've heard of them getting robbed overnight, like all the time. Not all the time, but it used to happen way more. But now, especially at my studio, we're very, very picky about who we take. Usually you have to know somebody at this point. We don't take call-ins or anything like that. If we don't have somebody that can verify who you are pretty much, you're probably not going to be able to get in, most likely.
That's the way to do it, though. If you can swing it that way, and if you've built your clientele up to that point, that's definitely the way to do it.
100%. So
yeah. So who all have you worked with in the rap game?
Honestly, every single Houston artist. There's not one Houston artist you can't name. Like, I've done tons of singles for Kurt Cobain's, tons of singles for Slim Thug, tons of singles for Devin the Dude. I was Bun B's recording engineer for 5 or 6 years. Man, every person in Houston. And then you want to, like, the big shots. I've worked with Wiz. I've worked with Kendrick Lamar. Worked with Mac Miller, R.I.P. Worked with 2 Chainz. Worked with Jhené Aiko. Dolph. Yep, absolutely.
R.I.P.
Yep, had him in my studio
That
quite a few times.
truly bummed me out. Dude.
Yeah,
he is.
That was pretty upsetting, because one of my very good friends, who's a really big rapper, by Starlito from Nashville. He's how I met Young Dolph, and me and Starlito. That's like one of my real good friends in music. He's opened a lot of doors for me, so I know him and Dolph are really, really good friends. So that broke me down a lot, just because I know how much he was hurting from that, and how much Dolph was an inspiration in his career too. And it's just, and I met Dolph multiple times too, and he was always one of the most genuine, cool, like most celebrities are, you know, let's talk about in rap music, most rap celebrities, probably 95% of them are really genuine people if they've got far. There are a couple that, are their own entity or whatever, and they're kind of their own thing, but most of them are pretty genuine and cool, and that's why they were able to probably get to where they're at, because they're able to talk to people, and they don't treat people like, you know, just terrible. But Dolph was one of those people, like, just in person, he was super genuine, super cool, kept to himself a lot, but always very positive in the sessions. And like, not many people are like that, especially at his stature. He was already kind of getting pretty big when I was working with him. So having somebody in there that is just that, like, down to earth in that kind of setting, when he didn't really know me and was kind of thrown into this, you know, through a mutual friend, but at the same time, he didn't really have that connection. But he was very genuine, very cool dude, and it was really sad. And it's sad that somebody could be taken away in their own community that's trying to better that community over something that, you know, I think is kind of senseless. So
I'll never understand, man. Like, I guess the culture those guys are just brought up in, and now, you know, they get to a point where they're worth tens or 20 something million dollars probably, and they have no reason to still be messing with that type of stuff. Like, was it Offset?
Yeah. Oh no, Takeoff.
Takeoff.
Yeah.
Shooting dice.
Yeah.
Why are you shooting dice when you got it? Like, it's over. Like, you don't need to be doing that.
It's hard to take, you know, people grow up in environments, and then when they get to that level, it's hard to, you know, change them. Like
change
that,
who you are.
Exactly. It's very tough. And that's why, sadly, a lot of really good artists and rappers and stuff that we lost have been in their hometown a lot of times, especially if it comes at some type of violence. I think probably 80 to 90% of them have been in some type of their, like, own hometown or somewhere near their hometown, which is sad in its own right. But it also goes back to people are jealous of what you have, especially if they knew you growing up. they can't fathom that you're the one that's actually doing, there's a lot of backside to that, but they can't fathom that you're the one that got lucky, or whatever.
And not them.
Yeah, 100%. So it's sad. I definitely, I worry about that with a lot of different artists, and I know a lot of artists are becoming more aware of that. But, even a lot of the artists I work with, like, they have to be on your P's and Q's when you're in your hometown, even more than when you're out of town. So, like, you can't just go, you can't just go walking around in random places and, a restaurant or something like that, because you're going to be a target very easily, especially with social media now. Jeez.
Dude, yeah.
They know where you're at instantly.
Yeah.
So.
I saw a deal the other day on Twitter where somebody, I don't know who it was, but they like took a picture of Elon Musk and like tagged the location, and like people showed up there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And he was pissed.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So the obviously security and all that type of stuff is very crucial to it. But like most of the rap, you think of Nipsey, Dolph, a lot of the other ones, it was a simple like, oh, I'm just running to my store for a second, or Dolph was getting cookies at his favorite cookie shop or something like that. And it's like, you wouldn't think you need your security guard to go do that, but a lot of times, like, you're a target a lot of times in that thing. And it's sad that people have that mindset of, of like a give me, instead of like they're trying to go facilitate it themselves.
Should have DoorDashed the cookies, man.
Man, I just anything with that, man, it would have been better. So
yeah. So do you spend most of your time in Houston, or do you fly out places to work in different studios with people?
We do. I've lived pretty much everywhere over the U.S. I've lived in L.A. for a year or two. I've lived in Atlanta for a year or two. New York, I've been off and on in New York a lot of times, but I stay in Houston most of the time, running the studio and the other operations. And then really only time I travel now is when we go, Maxo is touring or something like that. We had two USA tours last year, and then we did 2 international tours last year too. So this year we haven't planned anything yet, but a lot of it lines up when he drops music, or if somebody like a bigger artist asks him to come on tour with them. So that's kind of how it usually lines up with tours. They're usually not planned until his album is dropping, or you get put onto another tour for so.
Yeah. So you're going with him to every stop.
Yeah. I've been his DJ. I recorded, he was my first client when I was like 19. And I got linked to him through a mutual connection. He was one of my first paying clients at my studio, like good paying ones. At the time, like, it's, Max was like one of my brothers now. At the time I would hear his music. I'm like, okay, it's all right. And there's a lot of other people that were kind of like, had more notoriety and buzz kind of around them. Like, oh, this is the next big rapper from Houston. But then it's funny, cause it's like 12 years later, like Maxo from that era, Maxo's really the only one that got it. Travis Scott, he's his own entity. I won't count him in that era, but there was around that era, Maxo's really the only one that made it to that next level, signed with Rock Nation, can tour anytime he wants, all these other things. And he wasn't the one that was getting all the praise early. He just knew his own worth and knew his own image and knew what his team had and other things like that. And he just kept kept building his brand. And then lucky enough, when he needed, I was his engineer and producer for a long time, but then I used to DJ in high school. And when he started being actually booked for shows, he's like, well, I need a DJ now. And I also was the only one that probably was capable to do his tour manager, because when we got put onto a Danny Brown tour, and they only had 2 spots on the bus, Maxo, and then he needed somebody to be his DJ and also help collect his money and do all the other things. And they knew I was the only one probably really capable of doing all that. So then I've been his tour manager for 7 years too. So,
damn, so you're running this dude's whole operation.
Yeah,
man.
I do a good bit. So he has a lot of people involved with it that are very, very on point. So it's a big team operation. But yeah, so it just kind of, I go everywhere with him. Anywhere he needs to go, I'm definitely there. I'm usually booking the travel.
Yeah, I've always heard you really have to get touring in any. I had a buddy who has a reggae band, Third Coast Roots, and we were talking about his experience of playing shows and like trying to scale up in music and like what all kind of hits you out of nowhere that you didn't expect. But yeah, he was just telling me like the ins and outs of all that, and it's a lot more than people realize, for sure.
There's a lot of intricacies to it, and then the bigger levels you get. Like we just did Coachella last year. We did all types of stuff last year. Last year was a huge year, but he's got a booking agent now. He's got, he's signed to a label, RCA. He also has a management deal with Rock Nation. He has his own management that like is his actual company that's been with him forever. He has his own record label, all these different integral things. And now we have another tour manager that came on to help that, because now I just DJ only, because there's so many integral parts to that go into it, especially every time you get bigger and bigger. like more and more people join the team, but they also are expanding.
They want some of the cut.
Yeah, that too. But hopefully they're giving you the business that the cut can even be there, which it worked out in his case. He has a really good booking agent, and that's something that really kind of changed his trajectory of his career too, 4 or 5 years ago. But he got that from building up his buzz, building up his brand. A lot of people think that, a label's going to sign them and they're going to save them, and it's the total opposite now. You got to build.
They bleed you dry. I feel like
you got to build your own brand basically now. They just want a fire to be started. They can just pour some gasoline, like their money on it, and then blow it up. They don't want to start the fire themselves anymore. They used to do artist development and things like that, but it's pretty much now like you need to get your own kind of leverage, as they say. And once you get that, you'll have way, way better chance of getting a better deal. And Maxo waited for his deal, which was one of the smartest things he did, because he could have signed when he's the same age as me. He could have signed when he was 23, 24, but he didn't have that leverage. When he was about 27, 28, he had finally built, he's doing his own tours and all this stuff. And he's like, wow, like you need to show me why I should sign to you. And he ended up in a good deal, worked out fine. He has some other things in the work that I think he's going to do more independently going forward. But at the same time, if you didn't have that, I've seen so many artists sign to a label and then regret it. Even like I was talking to Slim Thug and Zero and all them a while back, and I would always ask them like one question before we would hang up or something. I go, "What is your one thing for artists that up and coming artists that you would tell them?" And honestly, I think every single person said, "Don't sign to a label." Dang. Every single one. I probably interviewed 15, 20 of them just doing little stuff on Instagram. And almost every single one of them said, "Don't sign to a label."
21 Savage always says that in his songs.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits to signing to labels, but like I said, if you don't have that leverage, you're going to be in a bad game if you sign a deal before you're really ready.
Yeah,
unless you're just that once in a generation star. But at the same time, you're probably going to build that outside of the label. The label's just going to put you in the back burner and hope you blow up on your own. You drop a TikTok song that gets viral, and then they can, oh, okay, now we already had him. So they don't do any work for you though if you're not the main one. This is pretty much how it goes.
Dude, I feel like ever since since social media really got big, you get these artists that they'll drop one like banger, and then you never hear from them again.
You get up as quick as you go down. That's the thing I tell, and that's why. And I use Maxo as an example a lot, but there's a lot of other artists that as fast as you rise, that's as fast as you'll go down as quickly too. So a lot of the artists that you see organically kind of rise over years, and that's why Maxo did so well, and tons of others, is you see them kind of just gradually rise over 5, 6, 7 years. They've been building that fan base for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so they're going to be able to, the longevity is much better. But the only person that I've seen recently, and it's just because he's honestly this talented and he's just as smart as Lil Nas X, to come up this quick and then actually build a career that is sustained from one song that you would have definitely thought was going to be a one-hit wonder with the Old Town Road. He's that talented and that good marketing-wise, creativity, that all his other future music was able to sustain. But other than that, I haven't seen any examples of somebody that shot up that quick with a one-hit wonder and then had longevity after that. I can't think of anybody.
Lil Xan, Lil Peep, all
of them. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Lil Xan, I'm pretty sure he's bankrupt somewhere right now.
Yeah, because these dudes they get so much money out of nowhere. They have no financial literacy. It's the same thing with professional athletes.
100%.
They're all broke after like 5 years.
And then, as like we were saying, you got more people joining the team, and a lot of these, they don't vet these people. They don't have good people around them to make sure they're actually going to bring in the extra income that they're taking out from their percentage. And they'll start hiring people, and they're taking percentages from your income, but they're not bringing anything in either. So it's like, what do you need them for? And then like I said, they have no financial literacy, and they spent their $1 million advance thinking, oh, this is my $1 million payout. Like, this is no, you need to pay that back. It's an advance.
I was going to ask about that, because I've heard that record companies will sign you and then front you like a million or 5 million or whatever. And these dudes thinking they're balling, they're wearing $100,000 watch and $60,000 chains. It's a loan, and you have to pay it back. So what happens if you don't pay that back?
There's all types of legal things that could happen. A lot of, you might have to file for bank. That's why you hear all these artists filing for bankruptcy, all these things like that. Because that $1 million, or, say even Maxo, it's public. He got a $1.5 million deal for 3 albums. But at the same time, 1.5 million, most of that is going to budget, paying for beats. You pay for all that stuff out of that advance. It's
touring.
Touring's the only thing that, most of the time, if you get a good deal, they're not going to take a cut of it. If you get your touring taken out of, it's called a 360 deal. there's a lot of artists that have signed really bad 360 deals because really your label shouldn't ever touch your touring money. It shouldn't. Even for Maxo, they helped put on a tour a little while back, put a lot of money into it, helped them get a bus and some other things. But from my knowledge, and I don't know the full extent of it, they don't have any deal within his touring to get any of that money off of that. They could help it because it helps promote their artists. But most labels, if you sign a good deal and you got that leverage, they're not going to touch your touring money. But artists that sign bad deals, they'll sign that 360 deal. And what the 360 deal does is anything you make with your name, likeness, all that type of stuff, they can get from merchandise, touring, all these things that normal deals never used to be. Most artists used to eat off of the touring and the merchandise.
That's what I've always heard. I heard touring is where you make your money and merch.
100%. It's kind of funny because even not long ago, you definitely make money in touring. And me and Maxo, I think we've done, 9 or 10 tours. And there's been some where he's made, we've made some money. He's made some, let me just phrase that. There's been some where he's made some money. And there's been some where he's either lost money or broke even paying different costs, because a lot of times it might be like a promotion for your album too. Like not long ago, Max was really cool with Tyler, the Creator. We were in New Orleans and Tyler had a festival out there, and we were talking with Tyler backstage, and I don't remember, somebody asked him, they're like, well, how much are you spending per show? And he's like, I spend $1 million per show. He's like, I make $1 million per show. But he's like, I spend $1 million between, he has like he has like 20 18 wheelers full time. He has all sets, all these things. And he goes, he's like, I ain't made really, he's like, I'll make money. They'll make money on their merchandise. That's where you get money from touring. He probably makes like $1 million. Travis Scott and Tyler, the Creator, probably can make $1 million off their merchandise in like a week. Mm-hmm. Selling it at shows. Even when we were at the Suicide Boys, who is the group we were opening up for from New Orleans, they were making $200,000 a night selling merch on their tour. There's just 10,000, 20,000 cap venues. They're at easily every night, but their cost to actually put on the show was pretty much breaking even. So you make money in the merchandise, but Tyler was saying this is pretty much just a big advertisement for his Camp Flognaw, which is his own festival. He has his own other things. So some people treat it as a big advertisement for their own brand, and they consider it a marketing expense, so they'll even lose some money on it. Some artists, it's always a promotional thing, but some artists will cut a couple corners to try to make some extra money on just the touring side, like pay per show. But you always make money on merchandise. If your merchandise for touring is good and you have a decent fan base coming out, you can make some pretty good money with your merchandise for sure.
Yeah. I feel like we're in an age now, luckily with social media since about 2012, a lot of these, you don't have to fully sell your ass to the big record labels anymore, because they're not the gatekeepers really anymore. Like they have a lot of influence, but they're not the ones like you in 1980. Oh yeah. It was like we pick and choose who is on the radio, and the radios 100%. And, but there you have like these I wouldn't say they're big time, but like medium time guys like Riff Raff. Mm-hmm. First of all, marketing genius.
Marketing genius.
He came up out of Galveston, I think. And I remember first seeing him in 2011. Mm-hmm. That's when I first, and I'm like, what is this? Yeah. And he was like, because he had those freestyle raps that were like, they reminded me of like DSR and like, just like the old Houston mixtapes you would hear. He would say some of the same stuff. So I was like, all right, because that's what I grew up listening to. Yeah. But marketing genius, and he's actually, he plays like this character, but he's actually really smart and
very smart.
If you look at his tours, it's like he'll play like Scout Bar right here in Clear Lake, mm-hmm. and like the Mark in San Marcos, and he doesn't play huge places per mm-hmm. se, but he's built a brand where he is grinded, and he didn't have like what you were saying, like he had a slow build up. So many albums, dude, like 20 albums or something. And
definitely Riff Raff is underrated as one of the best marketing musicians of all time. And he's from, he's been selling his CDs in Sharpstown Mall since like early days, like 2007, 2008. People were talking about him walking around selling CD. I can't remember his real name now, but
Horse Simcoe.
Yeah, I have a friend that owns the studio. And he used to say like whatever is running Horace or whatever, or he would always be like, I'd see him all the time, Horace at Sharpstown Mall selling his CDs, trying to sell people. And he's like, and then 3-4 years later, he actually like turned into what he was believing, and that comes a lot from self-belief, and then knowing how to, and like knowing your market, and knowing like, hey, I know this is going to work. I can tell I've seen this kind of work here and there, testing some stuff, and then really putting it into action. And then kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say he lives it, because it's probably, that's him, you know, that's kind of how he acts too. And he puts a better show on the, you know, the more public it is, per se, but that's really him though in the end too. So like, he really is that kind of character. The couple times we met him, like, he's a very genuine dude and very humble guy at the same time.
Yeah. And I feel like the most successful people do the best job at like completely adapting to not just like coming out with, you know, say you come out with some songs in 2012, 14, 15, and then you just stick to that same style.
Yeah.
He has gone from like the freestyles, like the more generic, like Houston type stuff. Now, if you listen to his new stuff, it's like retro wave, 1980s, like, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's very smart. Very, very smart dude. Like, definitely one of the smartest rappers that, or, you know, artists that has came around a long time, with just him seeing some trends and staying in there. And then just the marketing, like, he definitely is a wizard. And it always blows my mind, some of the ways he thinks of getting viral online. That's also not, it's not a gimmicky viral. Like I said, it's him. Some people would say maybe it's a gimmick, but it's really not. He knows ways to really push out his main things that are you know, influenceable to people, and he knows how to really exacerbate them. So people are like, what is this going on with him? And he stayed to stay relevant for this long, especially with the things he does and things like that. It's amazing, because most people don't. Like,
it's the pre-social media work ethic on social media.
Yeah,
like you were saying, he had to go to Sharpstown Mall and hand out literal physical CDs. Yeah. I can't imagine, like, that ties back into real estate.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if you had a client that wanted a house, you had to look in a book, write down all the addresses, like maybe go drive by. There was no, like, you couldn't just get online and see all the pictures.
100%. That's what my mom was saying not long ago. She was talking about, like, one of her real estate agents she worked with in like the 90s. It would be like, she was so good because you would say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And she just off the top of her head be like, oh, I have a listing for that. But like, back then you didn't have, like, you know, the MLS or nothing. Like, you know, you can go searching all day too. Like, you had to have somebody that knew spots that were for sale and would just know off the top of my head, like, oh, I got this one over here or something. I couldn't imagine doing something like that.
And if you were working with a buyer and you wrote an offer, you would have to write it by hand.
Yeah.
Nowadays, all the templates are online. So all I have to fill in is like their name, the price, and a couple other things. Yeah. But back then, you had to write it by hand, take it to the actual listing agent's office, drop it in their Dropbox. They'd get it the next day. So it's like probably a week before you like come to terms on a contract. Whereas now it's like bam, 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 done. Send it for electronic signatures. It automatically comes back. Like
it is pretty wild how things like that have just ramped up. So to have those skill sets, like you were saying, pre-social media, or even be able to do it just in the just in its own environment, outdoor, like really hand to hand of that. If you can translate that same work ethic and find those lanes online, it's, you know, then you can scale it massively from there too. So that's the other thing with hand to hand and stuff, is the scalability is in there. But if you take those same ethics like he has and put them online, and then you're able to reach masses in other places that you weren't even expecting to be able to reach with the same amount of time work.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've gotten a lot of work because of social media?
Oh yeah, it's without a doubt. So I think I personally think I'm pretty good with social media marketing. Like a lot of people, I was thinking of starting a music marketing company for a while, just because I was starting to put out a lot of tips online, and people were really starting to like them a lot. And I was doing free artist tips because I was seeing the failure rate be really high within different people within music, because they would try something and it wouldn't work out in the first week or so, and they're so discouraged. And so I started especially during the pandemic, I started putting out like daily tips for artists, and they were free. And then people started being like, oh, like, you should start a music marketing company. You know so much. Like, how did you learn all this? And it's like, well, it's really because I've just been doing it so long, and I've seen people be successful, and I've also seen people not be successful. But at the same time, music is I didn't want to start a company because I didn't want to take people's money. Because even then, I could do everything right with your music. That's why music's so tough. I could do every single thing right with your music. You can make the best music possible. You can do all these things, and there's still no guarantee that I'm going to be able to blow that music up or do anything with it. I could do every single thing right, and there's still a chance that is gonna flop. Yeah. That's just the nature of the beast. So I stayed away from the full music marketing thing, but without a doubt, social media and all that it's been like, you know, just without social media, the amount of work I would have to do to get the client bases now, and the, you know, sell the amount of beats and things I would do I'd have to hand out I used to hand out CDs. I'd go to events and stuff when I was like 18, 19. That's how I met a lot of these artists. Like I'd go to club events and stuff, and I'd hang out my beat CDs and all these things. I can reach so many more people now off of social media and the power that I spent just making my own content, because it, like I said, the scalability is so much easier. Now I can make one piece of content, put it out, and it reaches so many more people, and my customer list just grows so much more from that, because the amount of people I can reach within, an hour or something that I spent on a reel or a TikTok or something like
Reels,
that.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Reels is where it's at. I learned that quick.
Yeah.
I kind of decided a couple months ago, I was like, all right, man, you got to pick a lane and go hard. So that's why I started making reel. I make a reel every day pretty much. Weekends, it's like if I can, I will. I try to take Sundays off. But during the week, there's going to be a reel up every single day.
Absolutely.
And like you were saying, man, people just want, if they don't get results after a week, they feel like it's like not worth it or whatever. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to keep I don't even care about if I get views. And slowly but surely it went from, they started at like 60 views, 80 views. Then if you go down and look and see how many I have now, they're not all like real high numbers, but more often I'm starting to see like 2,500 views, 3,500, 5,000. And it's some of the weirdest, like the algorithms. I'm still trying to figure that out, because some of the videos I think are like bangers. I'm like, man, that was a good one. Nothing. Yeah. And then stuff that I'm like, didn't even think twice. I got I put a TikTok up the other day, and I woke up the next morning and I get on TikTok and it's like 230 notifications. I was like, what the hell? Dude, I had a TikTok get 260,000 views.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. But it was just like something that I didn't expect, so.
That's how it goes. A lot of time you'll make the content. The thing I've learned a lot with marketing, one is nothing but trial and error pretty much with all marketing. Try a couple things, see like why did this video get viral? Was it the shirt I had on too, mixed with the content? There's all little nuances that people don't realize with marketing, especially like short form marketing, like we're talking with that, because you have to catch somebody's attention within the first second or two.
Yes.
When they're scrolling, because especially if they don't know you, they're just scrolling, and you got to, for some reason, catch them within that first second or two. And then with the algorithms, they're all so different. Most of them are our interest, popularity based. But you could put one video, and I'm sure you've obviously experienced this too. One could go on TikTok, do terrible. One go on Reel, and it blows up, or vice versa. And you're like, what exactly is the difference between them? But they're all so different. And I learned more. I learned more every time I put out content. Every time, like I did the same thing during the pandemic. I put out a Reel every single day, and I grew my audience by like 10,000 followers or something on Instagram, and a good bit on TikTok as well too. But at the same time, there was never really a rhyme or reason for why I could see like why this video went viral more. But the one thing that I knew always had it was how I caught people instantly from the beginning. And I took this from Mr. Beast a while back too. He was doing some
love that guy.
One of the smartest like marketing guys I've ever seen. Him and Alex Hormozy are like insane marketing people to me. He was talking about, you got to show very quickly what the final thing is that people are going to see. So I can't remember what he was talking about, but say he was building a house for somebody or something. The instant he does that video, he's right in front of the house, and that's how he starts it. He's like, you got to show them what they're going to see, then you can backtrack and then build up to that.
Dude, he goes hard.
Super hard.
Right off the rip. I told these people that if they can stay in this house for 30 days, I'll give them $500,000.
It makes so much sense too, though, because and people, I've always kind of knew that, but him like saying that verbatim and then kind of like realizing how he does it, it's like you got to show people very quickly what they can get to, and then you backtrack and then you can build up to it. But if you don't catch them with that thing that they're like, oh wow, I do need to learn that really quickly or whatever it is, you're probably not going to catch them, especially in today's media with everybody's putting out content, everybody's doing that too. But most people, they'll have a video come up and they'll sit there for a second and they'll be like, today we're going to talk about.
No one wants to hear that.
Nobody wants to hear it. They've already flicked before you even open your mouth in that 1 second. They're already on to the next person. So you got to catch them within that first 3 seconds of something, whether it's like I say, like people, obviously there's different gimmicks of different color hairs, and people have different color, like the guy Ryan Pineda. Do you know who that is?
I think so. He's the guy
has the colored hair. I think he's from Vegas. He has like
a big come over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's gotten really popular in the past few years, but he even was saying like he would change his hair color because that's what made him go viral on TikTok and all this stuff too. And he's a very smart dude, but it was just like knowing those kind of nuances that actually work to be able to catch people's attention. That is part of the game. And that is different ways that people actually get that short form content to really blow up, is figuring out what are some nuances that I can stick out very, very slightly from other people, but it's an instant, like, what do I do? Whether it's, how you talk to the camera, how you jump into the camera, what you're wearing. There's so many things to it though.
If you look at my old videos so the whole reason I started making video content was because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I can't like go like be in person with people. So I'm going to start doing this. And if you look at my first videos, they're so bad, dude, because I didn't know all the stuff we just talked about. I had no clue.
100%.
So my first videos were like, these are the 3 first steps to buying a house. Yeah. And it would be like a long form YouTube video, like at least, 5 minutes long. Yeah. And I would do like these weekly YouTube videos that would be like 10, 15 minutes long, just talking about whatever. 8 views, 11 views, like no one watched it. And then slowly over time, just started kind of digesting more content on Instagram and seeing how like the people with a lot of followers, how they were doing it. Mm-hmm. And now I've gotten to where I'm so used to being on camera now, because it used to be awkward. Mm-hmm. The first time you see yourself and hear yourself on camera is so awkward, and I hated it. Now I'm completely used to it, but it's almost second nature for me now to hop in front of the camera and be like, this is what you need to know about this. And it's so I can crank out a video. I just did one right before you got here. Yeah. It took me from the time I hit record to where it was edited and done was probably 15 minutes. Yeah.
That's the beauty of experience. And it's the same with a lot of things you do, obviously, in life. But once that level, the biggest, most of our biggest fears, like the best thing on the other side of that is like our biggest changes and like our best changes. So people that are kind of uncomfortable in a situation, usually if you just get that repetition in, it goes away before you even realize, very quickly a lot of the times too. And then you're so like, wow, I actually like, now I can like really start, I'm really understanding this. I really understand like what I need to say here and how I can crank this out. And then after that, like your content will just explode, but it really just takes time. Yeah. Most of the big creators, all their content early on was terrible,
Look at Mr. Beast, dude. 100%. His first videos were like Minecraft.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just in his room or something, like doing some like just pointless stuff basically.
Yeah.
But, that all comes with the hours you got to put in. So
my buddy Matt, he has TikTok and Instagram. He has like 4.2 million on TikTok. Oh, wow. And then like a couple million on Facebook and Instagram. His name is Setup Spawn, but he does PC tips.
Oh, nice.
And I actually had him on the podcast, but he started by posting like gaming setups, like computers, just like random pictures of like gaming setups. And then he slowly transitioned for some reason into this and just kept doing it over time, was consistent with it. And like, he's a pretty reserved, quiet guy. And like, people that know him really don't even know that he has all these followers, I don't think. Yeah. But, he was also telling me with TikTok, he was like, TikTok is where you can really catch fire out of nowhere. Yeah. And, the more I think about it, that one I just was telling you about where I got all the views, it was about a condo in New York City. It's the most expensive listing in the United States. It's $250 million. Ooh. And I have found that shocking stuff like that, because in the video I'm like, yeah, it was 2.5 million. It's on Billionaires Row overlooking Central Park. The mortgage payment is $1.4 million a month. The HOA is $26,000 a month. Yeah. Like that shock factor stuff where people are like, holy shit. That's what gets views. People don't, like in real estate personally, you're drowning in a sea of real estate content a lot of the time because there's so many agents now. Real estate's pretty popular. Yeah. And I hate to say it, but no one wants to know the first steps to buying a home, or like,
It definitely isn't going to get 1 million views on TikTok.
No.
Yeah. No, I think the shock factor is it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. If you don't catch them with something that they're not used to within the first few seconds, you're kind of just in like you're saying, a lot of people make content now, and there's a lot in the similar realms, but most people don't do it well, or they don't take the time to learn how to improve every time and figuring out the nuances of marketing and stuff too. Like, hey, this video, the content I had was really good, but I didn't do the right hook, or I didn't film it in the right backdrop or something that caught people's attention, or didn't have the right shock factor, or the content was good, but it just didn't have that thing that was different for people. I'm sure if you talked about like you said, obviously the most expensive condo, most people don't hear that. If you talk about a really unique condo in a random place that's on a tree or something like that, it's going to get views, because people aren't used to those type of things. If you talk about a condo downtown in the middle of Houston, just a regular 01, it's going to be another run of the mill thing. So figuring out those like nuances for people that don't normally hear definitely probably draws so much more attention from, everybody, like even outsiders that don't want anything to do with real estate. They just hear like, oh, how do rich people live? And then, they want to like investigate from there. So
yeah. And, I tell people, I've had some people in my office, every time I walk in, not every time, but a lot of the time I walk in, hey, I saw your video on this. And they ask like what kind of equipment I use and how I do it and everything. And I just tell them, first of all, if you're going to do this, if you're going to go into the content game, invest up front in good equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a camera sitting right over there that it was like $300 and I just bought it because it was a video camcorder with no recording limits. Mm-hmm. It was like my first probably 7 or 8 episodes were shot on that, and it looks like shit, dude. It's so grainy. And then I was just like, you know what? If I'm gonna do this podcast, I'm gonna do it right. So I went ahead and got the GH5, I think that one is the Panasonic, and cost me a little bit, but dude, it's
gonna make your life way easier though. And if you're making content and like really trying to do it like you're saying, all those things, that's really investing in your business and yourself for sure. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your product better. It's going to make your marketing efforts easier. Because the one thing I always say about marketing too is the best way to be good at marketing is have a really good product.
Yep.
Because if the product's really good, it makes the marketing so much easier. That can almost take care of itself if the product's really good.
It gives you credibility. Because if people see you have a nice looking setup and a crisp, clear video with good audio, 100%. It's like, oh, this is a professional.
And you're competing against everybody else too. And most people are probably going to have that little bit better setup, or they're going to keep trying to up it. And we talk about this when people record music and stuff. They might record at their house on like a really, like, I don't want to say like rinky dink mic or something like that, and then they'll bring it to me to like try to make it sound better. And they're being dead serious about their music, and they're really passionate, and they're trying to spend all this money on stuff. And I'm like, you're competing with, you might think in your head you're competing with, these local people or like your friend that raps or something. You're competing with yourself, and you're also competing with the big people, because you're competing with the Kendricks and all them. Even if you don't think you are, because most precious asset everybody has is time. Why are they going to devote their time to listen to some random artist over them watching their favorite YouTube show, them watching the Netflix show, them listening to any genre of music, any album from almost any time period now, because we can do that with Spotify and all this. To get somebody's attention, no matter what you're doing, there's got to be a reason that they give it to you. And so you have to deliver that product to them that is even at least, like digestible to them, is like being somewhat professional. Because if you're delivering an inferior product to them from the beginning, they're not going to be interested in it, because there's so many even mid-level to superior products for whatever you're doing out there. You're not the only one probably doing what you're doing, whatever it is. So,
absolutely not.
And if you're, like I said, trying to cut some corners or be like, oh, I'm not really like, I'm not competing with the Mr. Beast and the Alex Ramozis and all these people like that. But you really are, because people only have so much time. Why, like, they're gonna have to make a decision between watching your content or listening to your song or something versus all these other things that they could do. So why would they do that for you? And that's part of building your brand, and also making people feel like, I tell people this in the studio, making people feel like they're a part of your family per se. Like,
yeah.
You're bigger than just like, oh, hey, this is some content. Here's some content. Like, people want to feel a part of something. That's probably more, especially when we're talking music, is people want to feel a part of, like, they're growing with something and they're really a part of a family, or like,
yes.
That's why, like, people will name their, their fans and all that. Like, that actually really plays a longer route, because then people really feel a part of a collective of people that are trying to push some kind of thing. And you happen to be the person that's like the face of it or the forefront of that little movement, and they feel really a part of it. That's why I see some of the artists that are really successful and Maxwell's a great example, are able to cultivate that, where people feel like there's a few different levels of it. People, they feel like they find you early, so they're kind of like a part of like a cool little niche that like only knows about you. Then you start to get a little bigger, and your first fans are kind of like, oh, you need to stay underground, but then you have the newer fans that are kind of starting to latch on and really starting to grow you. But then once you get to that big point where, you obviously keep growing, eventually your day one fans are like, oh, I knew him since he was, just, they feel like
they want that credibility.
They want that. They're going to tell everybody in the world, like, oh no, I was Drake or something. I was a fan of Drake since, he was in Degrassi and all this other stuff. I've been a fan of Drake, like Drake, like that's the levels that always happen. But it always starts with making that certain amount of fans or whatever feel like they're really a part of your family. And the one thing about that is the best way is word of mouth. And most of those people that feel like they're part of something, they're going to talk about it. They're going to talk about it. People are going to show their friends because they feel like they're cool and it's their thing and their niche and they're putting somebody onto something and stuff. People love what's the word? I'm trying to think of it. Social. I can't think of it. But it's like when you have that thing that other people don't know about and you can tell them about it. And then they're like, oh yeah, or social credibility or something like that. Yeah. So you can tell them about it and they're like, oh wow, like, man, how do you know all these cool little things and stuff too? People love that. So if you can make people feel like they're a part of something really cool and they're really like in that family of it, whatever content or everything you do, it's always going to blow up so much more too.
And you were saying how like people think that they're not competing with Mr. Beast and really, why are you doing this if you're not trying to do the best possible job you can? Like there's a saying and it's how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that made me self-reflect on a lot of stuff. Yeah. I was like, man, that's so true.
Very true.
And, my whole kind of, you're talking about family and like a strong social circle it's just ingrained in human beings. Like we want that. So that was kind of my whole vision for this podcast. And me and my buddy Nick had been talking about doing a podcast forever and we just never did it. And then one day I was like, you know what? I ordered the mixer, ordered everything, and then started it. And if you go back to episode 1, it was probably trash, but it's getting better.
Start, 100%.
Yeah. And dude, I've met and talked to so many different people. Like me and you would not be sitting here.
Yeah.
And it's just a sabbatical to relationships.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a good way to kind of grow your network and, money isn't everything. People are everything.
Absolutely.
And if you got a good network of people, like I'm at a point now with, being in real estate, if you need anybody for anything that's even remotely related to a house, electrical, roofing, construction, I had my buddy on here who has a junk removal company.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's crazy how many contacts I've made. And the other thing about this podcast is whether anybody actually watches the podcast or not, the cool thing is if I have a day where if I'm like real busy and I don't have time to sit down in front of the camera to make a video, I could be at Starbucks, screen record a clip out of this podcast, chop it up, edit it up a little bit, post it.
Yeah, that's the Gary Vee method.
And it looks good now because of the camera I bought.
See, you can make your life a whole lot easier by investing in upfront. I've always used that, and I tell people that. I mean, I'll even do the same thing. Like I'll take pieces from this and use it in content and stuff too. Because Gary Vee is obviously amazing marketer himself. He's always preached like if you do the 1 hour podcast or something like that, that should be cut into 10 different, clips. And then you should have slideshows made out of those with quotes over them, like all that. Take that 1 hour and it should be like 50 pieces of content.
Yeah.
There's been people that have done that, but he was the first person that I heard just like really hammer it home and just like, go to the full extent with it. And I've seen it. And it's so valuable and so smart, especially because like it goes back to we only have so much time every day. And if you can take that same content and break it up into long form, short form, all these things, because it was like we were talking earlier, TikTok, what might blow up on TikTok may not blow up on Instagram or YouTube and all this. So you may take one piece from this podcast, put it on TikTok. It doesn't do much, but you take that same clip, put it on YouTube Shorts, and then it does really well.
That's happened to me.
It happens all the time. And the rhyme or reason for why is always subjective, but that's the benefit of having multiple pieces and putting out a lot of content and that is valuable, but at the same time just kind of testing it, and then you'll be able to go forward and be like, hey, I need to probably talk about this more because it did well on all my platforms or something, this particular topic or something like that. So.
Yeah. Shoot, man. Well, let's talk about your okay, so what is glamping?
Great question. I guess glamorous camping, luxury camping. I don't know. Glorious camping. I don't know, but it's pretty much just I have a hospitality degree, so it's always been like a niche, whatever you want to say, of mine. So it's always something I wanted to explore. I've had Airbnbs before. I've had a few condos and stuff that I ran in Houston, but then now all the big money came in, BlackRock and all them people buying up every condo in sight, and $60 a night Airbnbs. You can't really compete with that as a small one. So I sold the 3 I had, put everything into the glamping site that I'm building in Lake Livingston. And I'm pretty much just trying to, it's a geodesic dome that I built, but it has full utilities, has a bathroom, kitchen, electric, all the things like that. There's a fishing pond, all those things. I'm trying to slowly working with the permitting department up there. Slowly, keyword. Anytime rural is
dude. They're on country time.
Yeah,
title companies are the same way. If you're working with a title company, like I worked with one in Madisonville one time.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
yeah, it is definitely a slow rolling process. They're really nice, but it's slow rolling. But yeah, I'm trying to build basically like a nature resort that people can stay at. I'm trying to take this brand in a few different places. I'm actually working with a few different partnerships right now that I'm working on with a few different companies that build different unique structures that I'm pretty sure I'm about to land a partnership with a couple of them, and then take that to the next level, because I really want to provide places that people can come out, and you'll be able to book it for studio time. I'll have mics and stuff out there too. What? It's mainly going to be Airbnbs and stuff. I have my own website, I have my own booking infrastructure and things, but I'm also going to offer like recording packages, or if you want to come in, because it's so unique and different out there, that I'll offer a recording package where they can get me to come record, bring all the equipment that's needed. You can hire like my editor, my filmer, my videographer, whatever you need, and maybe shoot a music video, all these things, give them like a big encompassing package, and make that an option as well too. Because one thing I think is I don't think there's many unique recording opportunities like that. Like, it's real big, Kanye does it all the time. Like, he did like 3 or 4 years ago, he recorded in a geodome, which is what I built actually in Africa or somewhere. I can't remember where, for one of his projects. And he was in Wyoming recording in like crazy places. And a lot of people want to do something similar to that, but obviously financially and things, people can't just fly to Costa Rica and set up a recording studio. So I was trying to figure out different ways to provide that unique stay for people to feel like they're in the middle of nowhere, but also have luxury, and then obviously tie it in with my music the best way I can too, for whenever. So I'm trying to utilize all that. Eventually I want to make it like a wedding venue or small concert venue or something. Like, there's a lot of ideas that pop up, but got to take it one step at a time with it. So
I'm booking a wedding right now, and let me tell you, they make good money.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I'm trying to figure that out too. Yeah. So there's not many of them up there that I think hit that price point that I'm looking at. So it's just been kind of a work in progress, trying to develop the whole site. I have the vision for like 10 years from now, what it looks like, which has helped me a lot to be able to get things permitted. Because if I had just went in and, I just want to do this one little thing first, like all my other plans would have been hard to permit because of septics, roadways, development plans, ADA compliance, which I'm running into right now, which is I was not expecting, and other things like that too. So luckily I was planned ahead, which I do a lot in my life for whatever my things are, and then kind of work backwards. I planned just like, what would be my biggest goal with this? And then I kind of planned backwards to see what steps I can fill in to get there. Mm-hmm. And it's made it a little easier, even though there's still a lot of, roads to cross, but it's been really, I like inspirational things like that give me something new to work on. Cause I've been doing music for so long. It's my biggest passion all the time. At the same time, when you've been doing it for 18 years, it's my paycheck. At the same time, after a while, it's like, all right, I need something a little different. What can I do using the same creativity I have and things that I actually like? That's the one thing in life that I'm a big advocate of, is find what you really, really like and figuring out a way to make that profitable, and because otherwise you'll find that you'll never work a day in your life if you like what you do, they say. Which, is kind of, I guess, subjective, because there's some days I hate music, even though I love it at the same time.
I feel you on that.
I'm sure with real estate's very similar. But at the same time, the overall thing, it's kept me going this long because I really love music. There's so many things I could have done that I would have got burnt out. And I probably could have made more money in other industries and other things like that, and done all these things. But I've been able to do music for so long and enjoy it because I actually like it, even through the, like the bullshit that comes with it sometimes. Like, I genuinely love all of it, like the bigger picture of it. And if I'm going to deal with this same type of stuff in almost any industry. So at least I like it.
Yeah. Everything's going to have a downside.
So that I'm a big advocate to when I tell, people ask me different things. I'm like, especially if they want to pursue music, I'm like, I'll tell them how hard it is and how hard it is to make money in music and why most people fail at music. And most people don't really love music. They love money. Yeah. Or they love the thought of what comes with being famous or something like that. Most people don't really love the craft of music, which in itself is so, it's the most important thing because you're not going to make much money at the beginning in music. There was years where, we weren't making anything. And if the thing with music is you don't make any money for the first few years, but if you're able to break that peak of, 5-6 years, then a lot of the money starts coming in quickly. Cause you've made it through all these years, but those first 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, whatever, like, I don't even know how long we were doing before we started really touring. We weren't really seeing much, like it was very little. So you have to love music to stick it out and like record all night and stuff.
You're pressing up against a wall and it's like an invisible wall and you finally break through it.
Yeah.
And that's where I've heard so many business owners say that, like they were struggling. And then they had one hit, one opportunity, or one job or one phone call that changed everything. And I kind of can relate to that in real estate. It's like my first 4 years, I did well, but I wasn't like really progressing like how I wanted to. And I was kind of getting a little bit defeated about it. Mm-hmm. And then in 2020 was my, 17, 18, 19, 20. That was my fourth year. And out of nowhere, I doubled my volume. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so it just takes time.
Well, you think it was like, you think in those 4 years, like, oh, I'm not making too much progress. And it's like, you're actually getting those incremental gains that you need that is going to, at one point, all start to like really start to line up for you. And then it just shoots up. But it was those 4 years you were putting in so much work.
Foundation.
That you didn't even see that was actually leading up to it. And I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about, when you build a house, you start with the foundation. Like you can't throw all the fancy stuff up quick away. You start with the most basic things, the things that, cost a lot, that isn't pretty and stuff. It's the foundation of it. And then you start to, add on those extra things. You start adding the structural, all these other things like that. But building your business is similar to building a house. Yeah. You've got to start with the basic stuff that isn't pretty. Most people don't care about. It's, it's all those things like that to get to the shiny part, because all the incremental gains is so true. And I had a very similar career path myself. Like first 5-6 years, like I was in college and stuff. People were trying to get me to go to parties. I'd be in the studio all night with Maxo. I'd be working on my own stuff all night, and people couldn't understand why I'm not trying to, go out and get drunk on the weekends and all these things. And I saw the goal that I had, and there was years time where, we're barely making any money. I was bartending, I was waiting tables, I was doing all types of things still on top of the music. I'd go to school all day, I'd go bartend for till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Then I'd be in the studio all night till 4 or 5 a.m., wake up, go back the next day to school. But I saw the progress slowly happening, and it was the same thing. I'd get discouraged and, oh, it's not happening. But I love music so much, it didn't matter to me. That I just like, I don't care if I don't make it. Like, I just love making music. And that's the one thing that I always try to tell people is, if you find something, like, find out what your real passion is. And it's always, it's tougher for everybody. Not everybody has that thing that they're like, oh, I definitely love this thing. But if you find that, sticking with it is going to be so much easier, that you'll be able to eventually get those incremental gains that you'll probably change your life from it. Anything can turn into something really beneficial, or I don't want to say a product, but a business, if you can figure out how to really craft it and figure out where there's a niche or something that needs to be filled in it. But are you going to be able to actually take the time that does it? Because most of those opportunities that come, you don't really get lucky in most of this stuff. You get those opportunities because you're doing it for so long that something's going to eventually, probably fall your way. But if you give up after a year or two, all those opportunities that might have been coming to you don't have the time to really develop, because you just didn't give it the time.
Yeah, planting seeds. I mean,
100%.
And had you never made it, and you had to get a day job, at least you could look yourself in the mirror every day and be like, you know what, I tried.
100%.
That there's more to be said than that, than any amount of money you could make.
100%. I've wanted to give up on music so many times, and I've told people, like, and even like a couple of days ago, there's a huge producer named Happy Perez from here, from Houston. He's Miguel, Lady Gaga, all these people, big, huge producer. He was over there, and he was in my studio. We were just kind of talking about it. He was like, yeah, I mean, I don't remember how we even got on the topic, but he's like, yeah, I've wanted to give up music like probably hundred times, more times than I can count. And this guy is one of the best musicians I've ever seen. Grammys, all the types of things too. And like hearing that, it just always reminds you, it's like everybody wants to give up all the time. It's the people that take that one step and go one more time than they want to give up that usually lead into those opportunities and are able to stick through it. Cause like, you can do that into any day job or anything like that. And I didn't want to look, like you're saying, I didn't want to look back and be like, I kind of gave it a shot and, I didn't, well, maybe I should have done a little more. Like, I didn't want to think that. I was like, I'm going to be so exhausted by the point that like, even if I don't make it, I want to look back and be like, I literally did every single thing that I could do. In all honesty, like not even, just trying to like sugarcoat it. I literally gave my all to that. And, sometimes that's all you can stand on because you'll know deep inside like, oh yeah, I gave it my all, and you're like, I really didn't give it my all,
right.
And if you do, like, I've literally given my all in music. So if I hadn't made it, I'd be fine with it. Not to say like I made it or anything, but if I had, even no matter what happened with music, I would have been totally fine with it because I know I did every single thing in my power to actually try to make that happen. And I can be honest with myself.
I had a guy on here who he owns Great American Title. And they have, I think, 12 or 13 locations throughout the Houston area. I mean, dude, 13 title locations is, I can't tell you the amount of probably stress and like
imagine.
But I had so much respect for this guy because he's done so well as a realtor, then started title and has a super successful title company. And he was like, of course I have my days where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I was like, damn, to hear him say that, that really kind of changed my perspective on you never, my dad always says this, dude, you never have it made. Like no matter what level you get to,
100%.
He's still waking up in the morning and checking his email and seeing him and just like, I want to answer this, but you do it and then get it. But if you're not sacrificing anything, you can't expect any rewards.
100%.
And the sacrifices are always a little bit more than you want to give.
100% all the time. Yeah, no, I think that I think that the perseverance and knowing like I said, it goes back to if you know your end goal and know where you're really trying to get, that's when you can start to fill in those steps and it makes it even easier for you to get there. And if there are some small sacrifices you have to make, it's okay to you because you can see the end goal and it might just, success isn't linear like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like you might have to pivot a little bit and do this and do that, but you still see the final end goal so you can see why you're taking these necessary, ridiculous steps. I think it was Alex Hormozy who said like he was talking about, he's like, if you take it as you have 365 days in a year, 10% of those days are probably going to be really, really, really good. 10% of those days are probably going to be really, really, really bad, which is 35 days really good, 35 days really, really bad. Most of them are going to be kind of, fledging in the middle. So if you have those 10% bad days, you just have to sit back and be like, okay, this is probably just one of those 10%. Because when you have those good days, like those really, really good days, you're not sitting there like, oh, why is this happening? Why do I have the good days like just today? If this is part of the life balance, you have to figure out how to counteract those really, really bad days. Just take it in stride. It's going to happen. To get back to that point of like, okay, it's going to correct itself. You're not going to have 365 bad days every day unless you're just thinking like that's just your pessimistic
pain
mindset.
Can't last forever. Exactly.
So the 10% thing, it brought me back. So when I do have a bad day, I'm like, oh, this is probably just one of my 35 days for the year. So hopefully,
yeah. Dude, you were talking about Kanye recording a song in Africa or something.
Yeah.
I want your take on this. What happened with that guy? Is that a guy who got chewed up and spit out by the industry, or?
So I'll say this from a few different places, because Kanye personally is one of the biggest inspirations ever in my music career. Because when he was coming up college dropout, all that was right when I was just starting to make beats. I know every word to College Dropout album. I listened to that. That's my favorite album of all time, without a doubt. His inspiration for people not giving him a chance, and he still went through it. Just the whole story from how he came. It was always he's by far one of my favorite artists. When we're talking, I always separate art from the person, because I feel like that's only fair in some cases. Obviously he's went to some kind of degree. Sometimes it's a little tough, but I always try to separate the art from the person. And artistry wise, he's one of the most important artists and people ever in my life, for how he was able to bring inspiration to me and give me a chance to think that it actually is possible. Now, where he went, my mom is a licensed counselor, so I actually lost my brother to suicide. So mental health has always been really, really really important to me and also really prevalent in my family and things like that. I'm obviously not a counselor or anything like that. He seems like somebody that's really went through some super traumatic things, losing his mom, all these other things that really come with the industry, fame, and all these things that really nobody can know what it's like to be that famous. Like, especially like that's like the level of fame he has and all the other things that come with it. I can't even imagine where my brain would be and all types of things. Does it make anything he's done or said right? Absolutely not. I see somebody that looks troubled and has dealt with a lot of really, really tough things in their life, but then I also see, I see the different sides of his mental health kind of kicking in, and like I said, there's no excuse for some of the things he's done though. So my take of it is, I love Kanye's music. I'm disappointed where we've ended up. I think he needs a lot of help in a lot of different ways. I think he knows that. I think it's kind of obvious, but at the same time, does he accept the help? Does he want the help? I don't know. I could be talking out my ass right now too. It's such a weird situation. And it's a weird situation. I feel so bad because he has such a dear place in my just growing up. Like, he really, Kanye instilled a lot of inspiration in me. And I know a lot of other people that are producers that we wouldn't have maybe not had, because he was so different and he still didn't care. And that always has been something that stuck with a lot of people, because there's different molds you're supposed to fit in and things like that. And when he came out, there was no mold. He didn't care. And that always was something that I definitely looked up to, but it is kind of sad to see where we've ended up.
I knew when Alex Jones was talking him off a cliff, that's when I was like, okay, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, what he said about Hitler or whatever. And he's like, nah, you don't mean that. You don't, I know you're just trying to get clickbait right now and you're trying to be controversial. But he's like, no, I mean it. Yeah. I really do think, I was like, okay.
Yeah. When Alex Jones is trying to be the voice of reason, and it's probably something going down that doesn't need to be said. Yeah, so I feel bad for Kanye. I do, even though, I don't know. It's just such a weird. I don't even know how to feel about it sometimes. Even it's wild, because that's actually it's not surprising, but it's a hot topic in music all the time. People come to the studio all the time, and we always have that barbershop talk. We have studio talk of sorts, And Kanye has always brought up now about stuff, and before it wasn't really like that, but in the way it is now, I definitely wish him the best, and I hope it gets to some point, but in the end, it's one of those things too, where it's like, I don't even know what I can even think about it anymore at this point. Cause it's just such an anomaly of a situation too. Like, I've never felt so conflicted with something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. When he was on Joe Rogan, he would say something that was so eloquent and like, wow, that was a great, 2 minutes of rant right there. And then he would say some shit like, God has chosen me to be the leader of the most creative person, the
leader of all people,
the generational talent of the free world. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Sometimes I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm like, is he just that much smarter than everybody?
Maybe.
I'm like, I don't know. He's obviously a genius in his own right. Genius could be subjective there too, but it's like, man, some of his thoughts, I'm just like, my brain can't even comprehend that right now. Are you on a different playing field than us?
Definitely is.
Is it a better playing field or worse? Because I'm not sure where we're at right now.
I think he switches playing fields.
I think so. There's no neutral playing field for him for sure. So, but musically, one of the biggest inspirations ever to me. And watching that Kanye doc was another. Rewatching that, the one on Netflix, was it reinstilled him. I see why he was been such an impact on my life, because seeing him early on before fame and had all these traumatic events kind of happen, seeing that passion again, I could see it from me. I'm like, that's the kind of person that I wanted to be when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be like that, didn't care, but I just was so passionate about something. But at the same time, I knew what I wanted, and all. He had so many amazing qualities that were broadcast in that Netflix documentary again from when he was younger, that it definitely helped me grow my fondness back for Kanye. But then, after that, he went back on the even crazier round. So then now I'm even more conflicted. I'm like, I don't know how to feel about the guy, to be honest. So that's why I try to separate the art from the person, because art wise, one of my biggest inspirations by far all time, if not my biggest inspiration. person wise, that's obviously a whole nother conversation now. Right. So
cool, man. Well, it's 3:26. I got a 4 o'clock I got to make. We are an hour and 13 minutes in.
Not bad.
It's crazy how fast time flies by on podcasts. Yeah. But why don't you let everybody know where to find you on social media?
Sure. TrakkSounds, TrakkSounds. Pretty much every place you want to find me at, I'll be there. And yeah, I'm definitely always open to talk and network with other people out there that have any questions. And I definitely appreciate you having me come by. It was a good chat for sure.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got it done.
Yeah, I've been in the making for a while, so it's definitely good.
For sure. All right, dude. Appreciate it. We will talk to y'all later.
Peace.